I never thought a plastic Minecraft mask would be the thing that saved my life, or the thing that destroyed my family's reputation forever. But here we are. Imagine walking into your own high school graduation, not with a cap and gown and a smile, but with a blocky green creeper mask duct taped to your head, because the alternative was letting the world see the physical proof of what my own father did to me the night before. I stood there in the hallway, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, listening to the muffled sounds of pomp and circumstance, while my teachers looked at me with a mix of disgust and pity, thinking I was just some edgy teenager trying to make a viral joke on the most important day of my life. Was I wrong for refusing to take it off, even when the principal threatened to bar me from the stage? Tell me, would you have unmasked yourself if you knew that showing your face meant showing a fractured eye socket and the purple, swollen handprints of the man who was currently sitting in the front row, waiting to take a celebratory photo with his perfect son? The whole mess started about 6 months ago, though if I'm being honest, the tension had been simmering in our house for years. My dad is one of those guys who is obsessed with his image. He's a high-level executive, the kind of man who wears three-piece suits to Sunday brunch and talks about legacy, like he's a king in a Shakespeare play. To the neighbors, we were the golden family. My mom is a local interior designer, always poised, always silent. And then there's me. I was never the athlete he wanted. I wasn't the star debater, or the future Ivy League scholar. I was just a kid who liked coding and spent way too much time playing Minecraft with a small group of friends I'd known since middle school. To my dad, my hobbies were a source of deep, personal shame. He called it digital rot. He'd walk past my room, see the blocky landscapes on my monitor, and just sneer. He didn't understand that those blocks were the only thing I could control when my real life felt like it was constantly under his thumb. He would come into my room at 2 a.m. sometimes, just to turn off the router and tell me that real men don't build houses out of pixels, they build them out of steel and sweat. He had this vision for me to take over the Sterling name, to be his carbon copy, and every time I chose a keyboard over a golf club, it was like I was spitting in his face. He'd make me sit in his home office for hours, lecturing me on the importance of presentation and dominance. He told me that a Sterling doesn't show weakness, and a Sterling doesn't waste time on fantasies. I remember one specific night where he made me delete a world I had spent 3 years building, just to prove he could. I sat there, clicking the delete button while he watched over my shoulder, feeling like a part of my soul was being erased. That was the day I realized that to him, I wasn't a son. I was a project that he was failing to complete. He started tracking my every move with a GPS app on my phone, demanding a text every 30 minutes I was away from home. He wanted to own my thoughts, my time, and my future. He began telling people at the club that I was heading to Harvard for business, even though I had never even applied. The lie was more important to him than the truth of who I was. The week leading up to graduation was supposed to be a celebration, but in our house it felt like a countdown to an execution. My dad had decided that after graduation, I was going to intern at his firm, regardless of the fact that I had already been accepted into a tech program 3 states away. We had this massive argument on a Tuesday night. He told me I was ungrateful, that he had built an empire for me to inherit, and I was throwing it away to play with toys. I tried to stand my ground. I told him I wasn't him. I told him I didn't want his life. He didn't yell. He just got this cold, glassy look in his eyes that always meant trouble. He told me that by graduation day, I would see the light, or he would make sure I didn't see anything at all. I thought it was just a dramatic threat. I was so wrong. Wednesday and Thursday were eerily quiet. He didn't speak to me. He'd just stare at me across the dinner table with this smirk, like he knew something I didn't. My mom was vibrating with anxiety, dropping plates and jumping at the sound of the doorbell. She knew the explosion was coming. She'd seen it before years ago, when my older brother ran away. That's something no one in town knows. I have a brother, or I did, until my dad erased him from every photo in the house for disobeying. My brother, Marcus, was everything my dad wanted, until he wasn't. He was the star quarterback, the popular kid, but he had a secret passion for art. When my dad found his sketchbooks, he burned them in the backyard grill while Marcus watched. Marcus left that night and never came back. My parents told the neighbors he went to a prestigious boarding school in Europe. I was only 10, but I remember the screaming. I remember the way the house felt like it was under a permanent shadow after that. For years, I believed Marcus had just abandoned me. But as I got older, I realized he was just the first one to escape the burning building. The night before the ceremony, I was in my room packing a bag. I had planned to leave right after the graduation party, just head to the airport and stay with a friend until my dorm opened up. I had my Minecraft mask sitting on my desk. It was a joke gift from my friends, something we were all going to wear for a quick photo after the ceremony as a tribute to the game that kept us sane. My dad walked in without knocking. He saw the suitcase. He saw the mask. Something in him just snapped. He didn't just get angry, he became a different person. He grabbed the suitcase and threw it across the room. Then he turned on me. He told me I wasn't leaving his house, that I was his property until he decided otherwise. When I tried to push past him to get to the door, he swung. It wasn't a slap. It was a closed fist punch that caught me right in the cheek and eye. I hit the floor, and for a second, the world went gray. I could hear my mom crying in the hallway, but she didn't come in. She never came in. He stood over me, panting, and said, "You're going to that ceremony tomorrow, you're going to smile, and you're going to tell everyone how proud you are to be my son. If you say a word about this, I'll make sure you never walk again." He then took my phone, my laptop, and locked my door from the outside. I was a prisoner in my own home on the night I was supposed to be celebrating my freedom. I spent the next 6 hours in the dark, the pain in my face throbbing in time with my heartbeat. Every time I tried to close my eyes, I could see the look of pure hatred on his face. I felt so small, so pathetic. I looked at the Minecraft mask. It was sitting in the corner, illuminated by the moonlight. I realized that my father had spent my whole life trying to unmask me, to strip away my interests and my personality until only his reflection remained. Now the only way I could survive was to actually wear a mask. The pain was secondary to the humiliation. He wanted me to stand on that stage as a trophy, but the trophy was broken. I spent the whole night in the bathroom with a bag of frozen peas, watching my face turn colors I didn't know skin could turn. My eye was swollen shut. My cheek was a deep, angry violet. There was no way to hide it with makeup, and I knew that if I showed up like that, the questions would start. My dad would lie, say I got into a fight or fell, and the cycle would continue. But if I didn't show up, he'd come for me. I looked at that Minecraft mask sitting on my bed. It was a full-head cardboard box-style mask. It covered everything. It was stupid. It was childish. It was perfect. When graduation morning came, I put on my suit, slipped the mask over my head, and walked downstairs. My dad was at the kitchen table, sipping coffee. He looked at me and laughed. He thought I was finally breaking, doing something retarded, as he put it, to rebel in a way he could dismiss as a phase. He told me to take it off. I didn't say a word. I just walked out to the car. The car ride was the most intense 30 minutes of my life. He kept trying to reach over and pull the mask off, but I would swerve my head away. He threatened to crash the car. He threatened to kick me out with nothing but the clothes on my back, but I just sat there, breathing through the little eye slits of the creeper mask, staring straight ahead. I was terrified, but I also felt a strange sense of power. For the first time, he couldn't see my fear. He couldn't see the tears I was fighting back. The mask was my armor. Every time he yelled, I just focused on the green pixels in front of my eyes. He was losing control, and it was driving him insane. By the time we got to the school, he was livid. He kept whispering through his teeth that I was embarrassing him, that I needed to act like a man. But I realized then that as long as I had the mask on, I was anonymous. I wasn't his legacy anymore. I was just a kid in a mask. The school staff tried to intervene, but I told them I had a severe skin reaction and was under doctor's orders to keep my face covered from UV light. It was a flimsy lie, but it was enough to get me into the lineup. So that's the situation I was in, standing in a sea of blue gowns with a green pixelated face, hiding a broken soul underneath. I had to make a choice. Do I keep the mask on and let him win by staying silent, or do I use this moment to destroy him? Before I tell you what happened when they called my name, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed hidden? Or would you have shown the world the truth? The ceremony felt like it lasted 1,000 years. Every time the principal spoke about the bright futures ahead of us, I felt like vomiting. I could see my dad in the third row. He was vibrating with rage, his face turning a shade of red that almost matched my bruise. He kept gesturing for me to take the mask off, but I ignored him. Finally, they started calling names. When they got to the S section, my heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Alexander Sterling, the principal announced. There was a ripple of laughter from the crowd as I walked up. I could see the cameras flashing. My dad stood up, ready to take his proud father photo, probably planning to crop the mask out later. I reached the center of the stage. The principal held out my diploma, but I didn't take it. Instead, I reached for the microphone. The graduation coordinator tried to pull it away, but I gripped it tight. I looked directly at my father. My dad told me that today was about legacy, I said, my voice echoing through the entire stadium. The laughter stopped instantly. He told me that I had to show the world what a Sterling looks like. I saw my dad's face go pale. He started moving toward the stage, but the security guard stopped him because he was acting like a madman. I reached up and grabbed the edges of the Minecraft mask. So here is the legacy he built. I ripped the mask off. The collective gasp from 3,000 people was the loudest thing I've ever heard. I didn't look at the crowd. I looked at the big screens on either side of the stage that were broadcasting my face in high definition. My eye was a horrific mess of black and blue. The swelling had migrated down my face, and you could clearly see the shape of a thumbprint on my neck. The silence was absolute. I looked back at my dad. He was frozen. He knew. Everyone knew. I didn't say another word. I dropped the mask on the stage, left the diploma where it was, and walked off the other side. I didn't even wait for the ceremony to end. I walked straight to the police officer standing by the exit. The officer's face went from confusion to pure horror the second he saw me up close. He didn't even ask questions. He just radioed for a supervisor and took me to a quiet room in the gym. While the rest of my class was throwing their caps in the air, I was having photos taken of my injuries for a police report. The principal came in later, his face white as a sheet, apologizing profusely for not intervening earlier. I told him he didn't need to apologize to me. He needed to apologize to every kid who walks through these halls wearing a mask they can't take off. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I didn't go back to my parents. I stayed with my friend's family for the rest of the summer. The story went viral, the Minecraft graduate. But I didn't care about the memes. I cared about the fact that for the first time in 18 years, I could breathe. But then the psychological warfare started. My dad's lawyers began sending me letters, not to apologize, but to threaten me with defamation. They claimed I was a troubled youth with a history of self-harm, which was a blatant lie. They tried to dig up my school records, my search history, anything to prove I was crazy. They even hired a private investigator to follow me. I would see the same black SUV parked down the street from my friend's house every day. It was terrifying. I felt like I had escaped the cage, but I was still being hunted. My mom would call me from burner phones, crying, begging me to come home and fix this, because the neighbors were gossiping and she couldn't show her face at the grocery store. It was then I realized that my mother wasn't a victim. She was an accomplice. She saw my face that night and her first thought wasn't my son is hurt. It was, how does this look for the Sterling name? She told me that if I just retracted my statement, we could go back to normal. I told her that our normal was a nightmare I never wanted to wake up in again. The months that followed were a grueling test of my resolve. I had aunts and uncles I hadn't seen in years calling me, telling me that family business should stay behind closed doors, and that I was destroying a man's livelihood over one mistake. One mistake? He had spent years chipping away at my soul. He had broken my face the night before the biggest day of my life. But to them, the optics were more important than the agony. My father even tried to file a countersuit, claiming I had stolen items from the house when I left with the police. Every time I felt like I was making progress in therapy, a new legal document would arrive to pull me back into the mud. I felt like I was still wearing that mask, even when it was gone, because the world wouldn't let me just be a victim. They wanted me to be a character in a drama they could judge from the sidelines. The most shocking part happened about a month into the investigation. I went back to the house with a police escort to get the rest of my things. My dad was away at a legal meeting. I went into his office, a place I was never allowed to enter, looking for my birth certificate. Instead, I found a folder in a locked drawer. Inside were letters from my older brother, Marcus, the one who ran away. They were dated from 5 years ago all the way up to last month. He hadn't just left, he had been trying to get me out too. He had written to me dozens of times, but my dad had intercepted every single letter. One of the letters said, "Alex, I'm building a life for us. If you ever need a place to go, I'm here. I know what he's doing to you, because he did it to me. Don't let him break you. He'll try to mold you until there's nothing left, but you have to fight back." I sat on the floor of that office and screamed. All those years I thought I was alone. I had a brother who was fighting for me from the outside. And my father had stolen that from me. He had let me believe my brother abandoned me so that I would feel like he was the only person I had. It was the ultimate betrayal. I took those letters to the police. They were added to the evidence, proving a pattern of control and abuse that went back over a decade. It changed the case from a simple assault to a long-term pattern of domestic terror. That discovery gave me the final push I needed to go all the way with the charges. I didn't just want him to lose his job. I wanted him to lose his power. During the deposition, my dad sat across from me, looking like a shell of a man. His hair had gone gray in weeks. He tried to give me one of his fatherly stares, the kind that used to make my blood turn to ice, but it didn't work anymore. I looked at him and realized he was just a pathetic, insecure man who used his fists because he wasn't smart enough to use his heart. He tried to argue that he was just disciplining me, that I was a rebellious child who needed a firm hand. The prosecutor played the video of the graduation ceremony. She slowed it down so everyone could see the moment I took off the mask. She pointed to the bruise on my face and asked my father if that looked like discipline to him. He couldn't answer. He just looked down at the table. The judge saw through his lies. When the final verdict came, it wasn't just a slap on the wrist. He was sentenced to significant community service, house arrest, and a permanent restraining order. The Sterling name was officially banned from the local country club, and for a man like my father, that was a fate worse than death. But the story didn't end with the court case. The social fallout was massive. My dad's company fired him immediately, and they even released a statement condemning his actions. My mom ended up moving to a different state to live with her sister, unable to handle the shame of what had happened. She still sends me emails occasionally, blaming me for her lost life, but I've stopped reading them. I, on the other hand, had to deal with being a public figure. People would recognize me in public and ask for pictures. I hated it at first. I didn't want to be the bruised kid. But then I started getting messages from other teenagers, kids who were going through the same thing. They told me that seeing me take that mask off gave them the courage to tell their teachers, or their friends, about what was happening at home. I realized that my pain had a purpose. It wasn't just about my freedom. It was about showing others that they could be free too. I started an online support group for kids in high-control households, using the creeper as a symbol of resilience. We take the blocks people throw at us, and we build something new. I'm at college now studying software engineering. My roommate is a great guy who doesn't care about my past. He just knows me as the guy who is really good at Java and drinks too much coffee. My brother, Marcus, finally found me through social media after the graduation video went viral. We met up at a diner halfway between our cities. It was the most emotional experience of my life. We spent 6 hours just talking, filling in the gaps of the last 8 years. He told me about his life as a graphic designer, and I told him about my coding. We realized we were so similar, despite the years apart. It turns out he had been trying to find me for years, but my dad had used his legal connections to keep Marcus's location a secret from me. Now we're working on a project together, a game that's designed to help kids in abusive situations find resources and support. We're taking the blocks my father tried to bury us with and building a ladder for others. Marcus is the only person who truly understands the phantom pain of a Sterling upbringing. And having him back in my life is better than any degree. I still have the Minecraft mask. It sits on a shelf in my dorm room, right next to my textbooks. Some people think it's a weird souvenir, But to me, it's a medal of honor. It's a reminder that sometimes you have to hide who you are just long enough to gather the strength to show the world who someone else really is. Looking back, that mask wasn't a sign of cowardice. It was my shield until I was ready to use the truth as my sword. It's funny how the things people call toys can sometimes be the only thing holding you together when your world is falling apart. People always ask me, why the mask, Alex? Why not just call the police that night? And the answer is simple. I wanted him to see me win. I wanted him to watch his greatest achievement turn into his greatest failure on the biggest stage possible. I wanted the world to see that the sterling legacy was nothing but a hollow box. If you're going through something where you feel like you have to hide your pain to protect someone else's image, please realize that their reputation isn't worth your life. They will let you bleed out as long as the carpet doesn't get stained. Don't wait for them to change. They won't. You have to be the one to change the story. You have to be the one to rip the mask off. The healing process hasn't been easy. I have nightmares sometimes. I still flinch when someone raises their hand too quickly near me. I'm in therapy, and my therapist tells me that it's okay to not be okay all the time. I'm learning that my worth isn't tied to my productivity or how perfect I look to the outside world. I'm learning that it's okay to be a work in progress. My brother and I are planning to spend the holidays together this year. Our first real Christmas in nearly a decade. No suits, no forced smiles, no fear. Just us. And maybe a few hours of Minecraft. Because at the end of the day, those blocks were more real than the life my father tried to force me to live. They were a foundation when I had nothing else. I've realized that the greatest revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's living a happy life that has absolutely nothing to do with the person who tried to destroy you. My dad is sitting in a silent house, surrounded by trophies that mean nothing, while I'm in a dorm room filled with friends and laughter. I won. I want to end this by saying thank you to everyone who supported me. To the friends who gave me a place to stay, to the teachers who finally listened, and even to the strangers on the internet who sent kind messages. You have no idea how much that meant to a kid who felt like the whole world was against him. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, please reach out to someone. There are people who want to help you. You don't have to wear the mask forever. You are stronger than the person trying to break you. And your life is worth more than their secrets. Break the cycle. Be the one who walks away. It will be the hardest thing you ever do, but it will be the only thing that actually matters in the end. Like this video if you were on my side, and think I did the right thing by calling him out in front of everyone. It helps get this story out to more people who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more stories like this where the truth finally comes to light, and the villains actually get what's coming to them. We're building a community here of people who aren't afraid to speak the truth, no matter how messy it is. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far by humiliating my mom too? Or was she just as guilty for staying silent all those years? Would you have had the courage to take the mask off? Or would you have walked across that stage and kept the secret forever? I read as many comments as I can, and I love hearing your perspectives. Your stories matter, and sometimes, even a plastic mask can be the start of a brand new life. I'll see you all in the next story.